Hello guys, Victoria Bardovich here. I am coming to you for episode 4 of the Evolutionary Edge of Eros podcast. And I wanted to deepen into the awakening process of your Eros and what comes after the sexuality has awakened and Eros is all your own again. So there's this process that majority of women and a lot of men even go through where they feel completely disembodied from their sexuality. For a man, sometimes how that shows up is feeling like their sex is taking them away from their purpose, from their deepest desires. They often feel like it's like this naughty outlet that they have to experience. And when that naughty outlet comes up, it can feel very much like taking a big left turn and letting other things go to like abandoning the things that they truly care about. And almost like this disconnection from the heart that they experience. It's almost like their sex is incongruent to the rest of what they're actually feeling inside. And the men that I've worked with inside of like CEOs and business owners, those kind of men, they often have this experience of like, okay, my sexuality is just a nightmare, and it just feels like it's just taking me away from the deep relationship that I want. Maybe they've cheated, maybe they've felt like that something has impacted their capacity to make money. Maybe they've had to pay out an ex-wife or a woman in their life that's super expensive. And often what this is this capacity to not integrate their own chaotic feminine, like this part of the feminine inside of them. They're kind of outsourcing it and having this experience as external, outside of themselves for a long periods of time. And then through the process of taking a tantric path and coming to work with me, they have the experience of reintegrating this part of themselves. And what they often see is that once it's reintegrated, that they feel almost complete with their sexuality. And maybe they'll call in like a really solid woman, somebody that meets them on their purpose. Maybe then they're ready to have a child or connect with somebody that is more long-term and sustainable for them. And for a lot of men, that is the end of the journey. That's the end of when they start looking at their eros, until maybe another cycle of that comes through with like a midlife crisis or when children show up. And you get the point, right? It's like the way that they're looking at their sexuality or their relationship to eros is something needs to be fixed, or I need to heal something. And the rest of the time it's just like letting it be a channel for intimacy, basically, and affection. And the similar thing happens for women. So what I see with women is that they've had an initiatory path, and usually that initiatory path can involve forms of violence. So feeling like the prey, feeling like there's, and not just feeling like experiences of being the prey as well, whether that's like sexual abuse as a child or the experience of being raped in their teen years or in their 20s. Complete disconnection from the sex, often feeling like there's a numbness or there's a disconnect, feeling like they've been really hurt, challenges to meet somebody that can connect with them and open them through their experience of their heart. And once that experience, a lot of that, people will overcome and have a journey with self-pleasure, or they'll have a journey with the Institute of New Paradigm Intimacy with the school that was created, or they will just do some one-on-one stuff. And inside of that experience, what happens is they also get to, I've had an awakening with my sexuality. Okay, my body is my own again. Okay, I'm feeling an embodiment. And again, they might meet somebody, and then the sexuality comes into the personal space again, and then the rest is let go of. And what I want to explore with this understanding of the way that Eros works with me, if you have followed my journey for some time, you'll probably recognize that it's not just all over for me when I've met somebody that I love, or when I got married, or any of these big life experiences for me that were really deeply meeting my personal heart didn't take me off track from my experience with Eros and with journey with my sexuality. And that's not like a better or worse experience. It's just that something that I want to talk about in this evolutionary edge of Eros is just that, like what happens if we don't just use our Eros and our sexuality to meet the next healing edge? What happens if we let that become a pathway in our life for continual awakening? And I want to talk about some of the pathways that have opened up for me because I explore life like that. A lot of the reason why I share this is because for me, this pathway of opening and activating my eros is not a process of like, okay, it's activated now, it's complete. It's a deepening, continual opening and deepening to my divinity. It feels to me that the more I unpack and unravel and go in and explore my eros, my life force, my sexuality, the archetypal energies that move with that, the more I step into this sort of highest potential of myself. And I feel like it's not a process of going from here to here, but a process of unraveling and unwinding and exploring and adventuring. And that process is not even something that is necessarily just for me and my personal, what happens in my bedroom with my beloved, but also inside of community. And this is also something that I really want to explore in this podcast, is like, what is the purpose of erotic community? How does erotic community fit into the everyday life of somebody that has a marriage or children or a family to take care of? Because often what we see is these self-development spaces really know how to hone the experience of sovereignty and their own personal agenda and journey, but how does that integrate into the rest of their lives? How do they then take their entire family on this journey of feeling supported by their eros? And for some people, this won't be so relevant. You know, for a lot of people, their eros is something that comes and goes and just causes something in their life every now and then. And for others, it is a deep spiritual path that can open a lot in their lives. And for me, this is really the people that I'm looking to speak to, is the ones that know that they have a path with the erotic, with opening to their divinity through eros. And my experience of when somebody has that pathway, it can be very easy to be shamed for it still, or think that it needs to come to a completion at some point, or that it doesn't fit into their life somehow. But I want to invite in this idea that erotic community can actually be supportive for people that want to create something that is synergistic. And some of the explorations that I've had through Sex Lab and other self-pleasure circles and the erotic community experiences I've had, is that the things that want to unravel and unlock from our psyche and show us the next part of our divinity and reveal to us the vision for the next chapter of our life can only come through in group experiences like that. And I think what's happening is, like, when the collective consciousness and like a group or a tribe and community comes together and allows their system to relax into the erotic, to feel safe in the erotic, what they're doing is really opening up to trance. And the trance that comes in and starts to open the threads starts to show more and more of what's possible. And I feel like, you know, there's a lot of different ways that people can do this. Like, I believe this is happening in the plant medicine community as well, in a big way. And also, you know, drumming communities, music communities, like, it's a similar piece of what's happening, is we're just opening the threads through coming into harmony, coming into resonance, and then the shamanic will open. It's like the shamanic field will open, and then the visions will come in, the DMT is released, and we'll start to see what's coming next. And on my last shamanic journey inside of an erotic community, what I actually saw was my divinity coming into a householder, into family, and into seeing how that actually walks in parallel with my, like, sharing my voice as for erotic community. And so this is the path that I'm on now, is working out how these pieces come together. And for me, it is that, like, I believe that there's some, it's not like, oh, we just do it with plant medicine, or oh, we'll just do it with drumming now that we're in family, or, you know, it's like, for me, the particular thread that comes down through the erotic and through and the visions that come through eros and through the body, when the body is in pleasure, the body is in trance, is very different to the ones that come through in those other trance invoking spaces. And what I keep seeing every time I open to this shamanic field through sexuality is like an awakening that happens beyond the healing space. It's no longer like, okay, I need to heal something in my life, I will go and look at my eros. It's more like, okay, the healing has happened. And I started to see in the last like vision that I had, and this vision came through opening the body, connecting to the body. It wasn't genital stimulation, it was just opening through the erotic, through my system in a group full of people, was this understanding of, at some point, we are going to see a collective of human beings that have awoke their sexuality. They know how to access it. They've reclaimed their body from the traumas they experienced through childhood molestation, rape, violence, feeling hijacked by their erotic nature, and they will feel it integrated. And when large groups of people have that integrated inside of themselves, the focus is not going to be so much on healing and awakening the sexuality from numbness, from disconnect, or working with, premature ejaculation, erectile dysfunction, not being able to orgasm, like all these experiences that we're usually working with when we work with clients one-on-one as sexologists. Because a lot of those, the irony around those particular challenges that seem like they're medical or they're physical or they need to be cured with a pill are often just psychological issues that can be unraveled. So I've been a sexologist for 9 years now, and in those 9 years I have only ever seen probably 0.5% of those people need to actually experience medication to have an erection or to move through their challenges around their sexual dysfunctions. So that kind of gives you a pretty broad idea of how much of this is actually just for the collective to heal together. And when that's happened, and when people recognize that just by going on this healing journey, they can actually relieve themselves of these conditions that are really fucking with their lives, what is going to be possible for that group of people that are working with eros in the field? What is it that we're going to be able to do with this technology that we've created? And for me, this is very similar to the technology of open relating, which I definitely want to bring some of the people that have deepened in open relating onto this podcast to share about how they work with it. Because for me personally, I literally refer to it as the technology of open relating, because that's how I use it. I go into my uni and I go into my sex life with my beloved and I say to myself, okay, what needs to happen now? And if I feel that he needs to have an experience with somebody else to activate a certain part of him, then I will just allow that to happen, or just see if that actually occurs for him, and let him know that's what I'm seeing. And if that's where his exploration goes, or he ends up meeting somebody, then I will trust that. And the same thing for me. It's like, what is it that I need for my system, for my body? And often it's like, do I need to see a practitioner, or do I need to have an experience with somebody else in erotic community? And a lot of the time it's not necessarily the process of needing to fix something inside of myself or in my relationship, but meeting my evolutionary edge of eros. And so this is why I've named the podcast this, because there's something magical in the recognition that your eros is always guiding you to see and to reveal the next layer of transformation, the next layer of connecting to your divinity, to meeting the highest potential of who you came to be in this lifetime. So that's really like what I'm calling forward, is if we started to work with the technology of open relating as a technology versus a lifestyle. Because for me, I don't really identify as polyamorous, and I also don't identify as monogamous. But I do identify as using the technology of both of these lifestyle choices as a way of navigating my inner realms and my experience of life. And through that experience, I've only ever been guided towards something that is actually really life-giving and not dramatic, or not triggering, or causing drama. It's just been a relationship to going into the experience, recognizing what is the goal that I can receive through a connection with another human being, or coming back into my own connection with myself, and feeling what part of my divinity wants to be explored next. And it sounds like, people will say basically, if you're not monogamous, you are polyamorous. But for me, it's not that, because how it shows up is trusting the experience to reveal something to me. And sometimes that experience is a relationship that will go over a period of time. but I can't ever say that I'm having a relationship that's parallel to my marriage, because that isn't how it showed up so far. And it's not really my personal desire to have that. Like, I'm not seeking that, I'm not hunting that, I'm not desiring that. And if it was to come to come into fruition in that way, that there was somebody that I needed to journey with over a period of time, I would be looking for the ways that that can integrate into my life, into my marriage, and into my larger goals for my life that I'm calling forward for. So yeah, it is about using the technology, and it is about understanding how the technology of knowing how to be with the eros and the truth of the eros in any particular connection with any person, versus seeking having needs met. And there's such a big difference when we are trying to have our needs met and trying to get off or experience like feel the gap of the loneliness that we're experiencing in our lives, versus meeting what is happening inside and finding what is the truth of that edge from a very different place. So this is why it's more about the awakening process of like, how do I connect more to my divinity? How do I feel that oneness with whatever you want to call it, God, source, non-duality, blah, blah, blah. And whatever that is for you, recognizing that that is the guiding light to this process. It's not one of, if you are feeling loneliness or you are feeling like your needs aren't being met sexually, it's like taking that almost to your prayer, to your experience of like, how can I be with this even in a deeper way? What is actually true if I be with this piece, versus trying to put a band-aid over it. And a lot of like swinging, polyamory, and sexual openness is really just putting band-aids on the challenge that people have with their attachment style or their sexuality and their inability to deepen with one person. And the same thing with monogamy, right? If they look at it on the other side of the technology of monogamy, it's like people have been using monogamy to find a safe space, a safe haven from themselves for centuries now, And what happens if we are not seeking to just come into the stagnancy of what it means to be a human being, but we actually continually lean and open towards our spiritual growth, towards growth is such an ugly word. It's like the essence of who we truly are, really. Like if we keep coming and shedding the layers to come back to that. And again, like what I don't want to take away from either of these technologies of monogamy or polyamory is that they can really deeply serve humans, and they can not be a band-aid, and they can be exactly the lifestyle choice that people want from the truth of their soul. So I definitely don't want to take that away from people either. But there is something that I'm very curious about inside of what I'm speaking to, which is this evolutionary edge of eros. And if we continue to listen to our eros, trust our eros, and let our eros guide us towards more life, because that is the truth of the life force energy. Something that I used to teach inside of the Institute of New Paradigm Intimacy was, where does this energy come from? And one of the things that I've tracked over the many years has been that when people are utilizing their sexuality from a place of adrenaline, what's often happening is they're quite disconnected from their eros, and what they're experiencing is like the friction of the discomfort of being inside of their body, and that is then creating adrenaline, and it upwells through the sex because it's seeking to come out and be met, and also create healing, create resolution. And then what often happens is like that eros comes through and maybe into a creative project, and then that creative project can unravel into, often like what I often see is it doesn't last very long, the business project, or it doesn't maybe even come to fruition a lot of the time. It's like unfinished creative projects that come through. Often is because it's a wound inside that is looking to meet itself through the creative project. And when that comes into a completion, or it feels like too heavy to go a layer deeper into the completion of that loop or that pattern inside of the being, then the creative project will just disappear, and we'll come back to the start. And the same thing with relationships. Like if a person is experiencing their sexuality, and then they have the experience of like moving from their sexuality from their adrenaline, they'll often go towards somebody, and they'll have the experience of like having a really dramatic sexual chemistry experience with somebody, and then what will happen is that will explode very quickly. Like it will be like really hot and passionate, and then it will just die off very quickly. And it's the same thing again. It's like the wound is trying to alchemize through a relationship, and if it's come from adrenaline in the first place, like the erotic energy or the sexual energy, then usually it will just unravel very and not last very long, basically. And then what happens if we work with the Kundalini energy that comes through the earth? So this is like when Eros is not working from adrenaline, but Eros is actually coming through the energy of the earth, comes up and connects into our bodies as another electrical current that it can work with. And then it starts to vibrate through the sex. And this is where it goes from that place of like, Eros is quite non-dual in my experience of it. It's not necessarily seeking anything. It's not really masculine or feminine. It's just a vibrational, like dark matter or dark energy that is just working through the body. And then once what starts to happen is that when it comes into the body is that it starts to open through into that polarity. So it goes in through to the masculine or the feminine energy, and then it comes into an experience of a project. And usually what happens with the creative project, business project, whatever that is that it starts to unravel and heal parts of the self, or it's almost like life expressing itself. So it's like a soul expression that's moving in the world, and it's usually quite magnetic, and it usually is quite successful, and it will just be like a hum and a buzz inside of the world because it's just more of the Kundalini energy expressing itself through you. Similar for relationships. When the Eros comes up through the body and then it goes towards that experience of the polarity of the masculine and feminine, it will often find somebody and have an erotic connection that then develops into some sort of alchemical, potent relational experience. And that relational experience is then creates something in the world. You know, it's like it looks like it's blossoming. And when you see couples like this, you often go, oh, that's a power couple, or oh, they're really having an experience of their divinity. And that is what I keep seeing on the planet when I see these erotic communities coming together. It's like, what happens when people start to clock on to how to bring Eros through their body without adrenaline, and be with the slowness of that, and be with and listen to the Eros, because that's what's happening when I'm having connection with anybody. I'm not looking to go and have a sexual experience with somebody else. I'm looking to meet the Eros, and sometimes the Eros will just happen through a conversation. Sometimes it will be like, oh, I need to create something with this person because there's something that's vibrating between us. Sometimes it will be like, wow, this is a beautiful heart connection, and something wants to unravel and be felt that is going to open me more to my divinity, to more of my heart, and to more of the energy that is stored inside of my heart wants to come into fruition even more, to show me something, to teach me something. And that is the beauty of really meeting people in Eros, is that you're not just trying to make this person be something for you. You are listening to what the Eros wants to reveal to you as an individual, and also between you and any other person that you are connecting with. So here's some of the tech. I'm kind of just going to leave this podcast with a bit of a question mark on like what is possible for erotic communities if we were listening to Eros and letting Eros guide us, instead of looking for somebody to fulfill some part of us or to fulfill a need for us. Because that's what I'm personally very excited about. Thank you.